Hello, everyone. Thank you once again for tuning in to another session of the Insight Forum. We are extremely happy to know that you are really liking this initiative. We have been approached by a lot of alumni and employers who are willing to contribute to this segment, and we would definitely make them part of this journey as we have plans to continue it as our regular feature. All right. So today we have a very interesting theme to discuss, and of course it is the need of an hour as well, particularly for those who are currently studying in universities, either in their junior or senior year, or perhaps the ones who have just entered the market and are still unable to find a suitable job or a job for themselves, or someone who is having a gap in his or her career. We all know that the market has really shrunk after COVID, with very limited career opportunities, opportunities both inside and outside the campus. Since we are under complete shutdown since March this year, and still we are not sure as an educational institution about the future operations of our business. I mean, how we'll be operating in the months to come. This is still a challenging situation. Of course, there will be some SOPs that we have to follow as an institution. We have to abide by them, which means that there might be no mega events happening for at least the next few months, and which ultimately means that sadly, the current students might not have much to showcase on their profiles. So, to talk about how you can fine tune your resumes, your applications, to turn it into your favor, whether you are applying for a job or a scholarship or admission to an international university for your higher studies, we have with us Miss Nadia Saeed today.
Hi,
Let
Danish.
me just brief. Hello, Nadia. Welcome to the segment once again. Let me just introduce Nadia for all of you who are watching us right now. Nadia is a communications specialist and has been associated with IBA Karachi as a visiting faculty for more than 2 decades now. She has also made her mark in the field of training by interacting with a diverse set of audiences on a variety of subjects. Apart from teaching, she has been mentoring and coaching our students and graduates on personal and professional grooming and to develop their soft skills. One of our major achievements has been the design and development of the Personal Effectiveness Program at the IBA, which focuses on preparing students for the challenges of the corporate world. So, welcome once again, Ms. Nadia. You have been part of this segment. I think this is your second session for us,
Yes,
and
thank
this
you. It's
session, I
always a
think,
pleasure to be back.
this session has been recommended by you, the topic, of course, and you feel that this is the dire need of the time. And I think you should just carry on with your presentation now.
Okay, so let me just share the slide that I have.
Yeah, sure.
And thank you for having me on this session. Okay, so are we good?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. All right. So, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being part of the session. And I just hope that this will add the much needed value that is needed, in the times that we are facing and the times that we will be facing. The reason to do this session, there's always a reason, right? You need to understand why you are investing 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes in a situation, listening to somebody, watching something, engaging in something. Everything has to have an outcome, right? And one of the things that this session is supposed to result in is actually an outcome. And the outcome is that the current documents that you're dealing with, whether it's application documents, whether it's scholarship, scholarship documents, whether it's your resumes, they definitely need a facelift. And the reason why some of these things were extremely essential to be put out there is what you will see right now. In the last couple of months, there have been there has been a surge in the number of students who have gotten in touch with me with their um, job placement documents. So I'm talking about resumes in particular. I would just like to share the diversity of the student body who did get in touch with me. It was as early as second, third semester students, and it was as late as graduates of 2019, 2020, and some even further, as in graduates who have been in the job markets for approximately 2 years, 18 months, and they have gotten in touch with me to see their resumes and to give them feedback. Now, one of the reasons why that is happening is obviously people within the academic environment, um, they want feedback because they want to constantly keep evolving their resumes. People who are already in the job market, obviously one of the reasons probably is that either they haven't gotten the opportunities as yet, or the fact that they had the opportunities, and because of the external environment and the issues, those opportunities were taken away from them. Right? So of course, at each time you move from point A to point B, you cannot move with the same document. You have to evolve and change that document so that it is updated to fit the current needs of not only what you have done, but also the organizations or the graduate schools that you will be applying for. So one of the first reasons that prompted us to do this is because it would be easier to address a bigger group and a bigger audience with the recent questions and the challenges that they were facing. The second thing was obviously all of a sudden, because internships were not that many, job opportunities were not that many, projects were not that many. There was a sudden realization that the unpredictability and uncertainty will not give content which can be translated onto a piece of paper, right? Whether it's an application essay or a personal statement or whether it's a resume. So the uncertainty and the unpredictability created a lot of insecurity with the documents that the students were dealing with, right? The third thing was, and it was great, people had time on hand to reflect and ponder. Where a student would be, say, on campus from 9 to 5 or in office from 9 to 5, the engagement may still have been there from working from home and studying online, but obviously you are not commuting, you're not socializing, and you are something that would take 3 hours. When you're doing it on your own from home, you probably do it in an hour. And then you have time to reflect, ponder, and think about how you can make things better, right? So that's exactly what was happening, that people stopped and realized that, okay, work is done at 12 p.m. or my assignment is done at 11 a.m. and now I have nothing to do. So the laptop is opened and you go back and you're looking at things and you start questioning yourself. Is this good enough? Is this going to hit the nail on the head? Am I on the right track? Right? So because these questions are being asked, I think a lot of people got in touch with those resources who could help them shape and nurture and correct the documents that could lead to future applications, right? And the next thing was increased demand for feedback and guidance. This is related to the third point, like I just mentioned, and that's exactly what it is. That all of a sudden, on an average, when I would give feedback on, say, maybe 115 resumes, and just before the recruitment time, so maybe if recruitment started in Feb, by early Jan, mid Jan, but recruitment is nowhere in sight, right? Even if you talk about the formal recruitment processes for the graduating batch, a lot has happened. Others are doing it slowly, but yet there is a continuous connection of students to give feedback on the documentation, because that document is the only sense of security, right? And that is why it's imperative to understand how can you give yourself that security. All right. Also, the fear of the opportunities that were lost. A lot of companies are not hiring, but on the same hand, a lot of companies, instead of hiring 5 people, were hiring 10, 15, 20 people, because all of a sudden the pandemic gave them the opportunity. So in a lot of sectors, opportunities were lost because certain lifestyles and certain behaviors changed. But on the other hand, in a lot of sectors, opportunities were gained because the new lifestyle and the new behaviors led to new needs of customers, etc. And finally, the changing employment scenario. Again, organizations have realized who are the important people. All of a sudden, that's the first thing. The second thing is certain skills have become very, very predominant. All right. So maybe physical work is not an important skill right now, but to be able to manage a team, from your laptop all of a sudden becomes a very, very important skill. And this is what my topic of discussion is going to be. That how can a recruiter, through your document, see the fact that you can actually motivate, lead, right, and empower people just through the click of a couple of buttons on your laptop screen, right? So you have to understand that the skills that were predominantly needed, or the skills that were required a year ago or even 6 months ago, all of a sudden the HR is going to be looking at skills in a completely different light. Why? Because they themselves in their work environment have realized, okay, who are the people who are essential for the organization to work, and who are the people who are not so essential for the organization to work, right? So the skills have kind of shifted. And that is a kind of skills that people will now be looking for, because there's a sense of security in the skills. Okay, God forbid something happens, these are the skills that are needed irrespective of whether we meet each other in office or not. So that is what the changing employment scenario is. And as a result of that, a session like this was trying to cater to that particular scenario. All right. So the basic agenda, or the basic goal of this session is that I'm going to talk about things that are step 1, step 2, and step 3. All right. A lot of discussions are very generic discussions. Generic in the sense you should go out and do a job. You should go and connect with somebody on LinkedIn. You should try and do. But the biggest question that a 6-semester student asks is, but we have just done 2 years of an academic degree. Or somebody who's transitioning between one job to the other job says, but I've just lost a job. And the first question in an interview is going to be, why did they fire you? Right? So these are the kind of things that normally very generic answers are given for. But people who are audiences of this particular session need to understand that this session is to cater to that, vagueness and that generic statement that somebody will tell you that, okay, yeah, this is how you should be doing things. So anyway, I will address the questions at the end. So these are some of the myths. So today, right now, I'm beginning with talking about resumes, because once you figure out the do's and don'ts of resume, that kind of cascades into the way an application document for a college or a scholarship, etc., will also be developed, right? The concept is the same. The difference is the layout and the format. So I'll begin with a resume, and I'll close with the do's and don'ts of application documents. All right. So these are some myths about a resume. And remember, these myths also apply to your graduate documents. So write every possible achievement and task since birth. Now, one of the reasons that I'm doing this session is because student A sends me a resume. The first thing I do is I send a sample, please change the format. The format comes. Next, I'm proofreading it and I'm like, there's something from 2013, 2014. I'm like, oh, achievements and credentials should only be something which are just 2 years recent, or something if it was done in 2014, like you played cricket in 2014, you should still be playing it right now. All right. So this is a myth that you have to write every possible achievement and task since birth. Jazz up the format. Formats which distract, formats which take away from your credentials, formats which make the recruiter search should absolutely be done away with. All right, so this is a myth. In the last couple of months, I think I must have corrected over half a dozen resumes where the format was so jarring in the face that the credentials were just lost. All right. So the next myth is, let's play bluff, let's play hide and seek, and let's play catch me if you can with the recruiter. All right. So play bluff means let me write something, and you know what? It just glorifies me. Hide and seek, I did this, but there's no task that comes or skill that comes out of this. And catch me if you can, where your resume is very bland without giving specific details in terms of concrete figures, numbers, percentages, number of interactions, etc. So these are some of the things that are considered myths. Let the recruiter be Sherlock Holmes. So you give a report title, or you give an internship, or you give a extracurricular activity that you've done, and then you leave it to the imagination of the recruiter. Please remember, we all know this is a common thing. Between 7 to 9 seconds is the amount of time that a recruiter spends on your resume. And in those 7 to 9 seconds, if things don't hit in the face, that particular document, both in terms of a personal statement and in terms of a resume, is not going to be shortlisted. So things have to literally smack on the face. All right. Please do not see the recruiter as a therapist. All right. It should resemble a job description, which means I attended, I participated, I wrote, I emailed. These are job descriptions. They say nothing about the fact that if you attended something, was it beneficial to the organization? If you participated in something, did it add value? Or if you wrote or emailed something, what was the outcome, right? So it should not resemble a job description. It is a document for an English writing class. It's a document for an English writing class only from the point of view of correct punctuation and presentation, both for personal statements and resumes. But the next slide will tell you why I have written this, all right? And here's the reality. Write every possible thing since birth. Actually, it is a list, but it's a list of your skill set. A resume is not a chronological order of what you have done, but it is a chronological order of a skill set that you showcase for your recruiters. Please understand this. And I have a slide which comes forward, which will show a task, and it will exactly translate that into a skill set. Jazz up the format. There's something called the split vision syndrome. The split vision basically means, and the reason, again, like I said, this is not out of a textbook. This is not out of any other presentations. These are my findings and feedback from hundreds of documents that I have read over the last couple of years, right? And what I'm hoping this session would do is that if now people send me things for review, we will be a step forward into the correction of content versus correction of the accessories of your application documents, right? So the split vision syndrome basically means that you have, when you divide your resume in two columns, the recruiter's focus in those 7 to 9 seconds gets distorted in whether he or she should read this column or whether he or she should read this column, right? So the best format is just to have your horizontal format where every heading follows one after the other. And obviously, the simpler the format, there's more clarity. And I have been constantly telling people that please do not use circles and bar charts and color them in order to signify your skills, because that means nothing. All right. The next thing is let everything be to the imagination of the recruiter. That is not true. You have to say it loud and clear that I was a team player. I negotiated, a sponsorship. I negotiated a job. I negotiated a deal. Because of my presentation skills, this particular project was approved. I resolved a conflict in XYZ thing. So this is what loud and clear is. So by the myth of this is that when people write or they're trying to say that I'm a team player, they will say, did a project for XYZ company. All right. So that is where the blandness comes in. But when you say that I was a team lead or I was a team player in doing XYZ, the word team just sticks out. And please also let me add over here that going forward, a lot of organizations are going to be reviewing resume, especially personal statements still are being read. There may come a time that they will not be read. And will also use software. But there are a lot of companies where you upload your resume on portals, right? And most of those companies are actually using a software to pick up keywords. And some of the keywords have to be there for your resume to be shortlisted. The same thing goes when you're putting yourself on social media. Your name pops up in searches only because your descriptions have certain keywords. So in the last couple of months, especially students at junior levels, are having a very hard time articulating all that they've achieved in the last couple of years at IB and before, and articulating them into words that will generate the recruiter's attention. All right. Okay, I'd said let the recruiter be Sherlock Holmes. No, you have to make sure that you make it very, very obvious that you were the person who's added the 5 stars to the organizations because you did something. It may not be a very earth-shattering feat, but the point is that if you have been given something and an opportunity, whether it's through a project by a teacher or whether it's something by an organization, the translation of that has to have some outcome. Otherwise, people wouldn't give you that task. So please start reading your sentences in such a way that you can give that clarity that because of doing this, I have achieved this. All right. Next thing, the recruiter is not your therapist. So here I see sentences such as, I love reading books. I enjoy baking. I believe that I can change people's lives by doing charity. I did XYZ thing. I have faith that my credentials, these are all personal pronouns. A resume definitely does not use a personal pronoun. Personal statements can use personal pronouns, but again, the personal pronouns have to be converted into very, very strong action-oriented words. All right. So again, the personal statement also, when somebody's reading that thing on paper or on an email or on a computer screen, remember they should be seeing you dancing up and down on that screen, which means that is how strong your writing should be, that a college admissions committee should be able to visualize what you have done in those 350, 500, 750 words, whatever the word limit is, right? And finally, when I spoke about job descriptions, and these are the words, please translate and change those words into leading things, initiating things, spearheading things, collaborating things, directing things, and so on and so forth, because this relates to point number 3, which means that you are telling the recruiter loud and clear. Remember, guys, please keep that thing very clear. Sometimes जब मैं resumes पढ़ती हूँ तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि लोगों का ये ख्याल है एप्लीकेंट्स का कि बस सिर्फ मेरा ही रेज्यूमे इनके पास पढ़ने के लिए, तो वो सुबह 9 बजे शुरू करेंगे और 9:30 पौने 10 बजे तक सिर्फ मेरा रेज्यूमे ही या मेरा पर्सनल स्टेटमेंट ही पढ़ते रहेंगे. दैट्स नॉट ट्रू. They whiz, they skim read. And skim reading way, of course, things have to hit you in the face. All right. And the last thing is, like I said, it's an English document only from a correctness point of view, your punctuation, but please differentiate between a bullet point and a paragraph. All right. The general rule of the thumb is that whatever you are displaying, and this is where articulation and developing your vocabulary comes in, which comes from reading, etc., that your explanation of a certain skill or a certain activity that you've done should not be more than one beginning at one side of the page and ending at the other side of the page. All right, so that's how short the bullet points have to be. Okay, so the question is that how, again, like I said, I'm going to answer very specific things, so they're very example based. The question is, but this is all great, it's all generic and vague and very, very how to and how not to. So can you please tell us what is it that is the translation process? Now, here are some very, very examples. I always believe in speaking with examples because the students don't question, oh yeah, these are just things that sound good. All right, there's a level of believability. So if you've cut a tree, the outcome is that you've done it to make 10 tables for a charity school. So the task was a tree and the outcome was a charity school, all right? So that shows a certain personality trait, okay? There are a million resumes that I have read, because obviously सबको एक ही report topics मिलते हैं किसी course में. अगर एक student, अगर एक class ने 70 बच्चों ने एक ही topic पे report किया because उस professor ने वो report दिया था, I see 70 kids writing, did a retailer research on XYZ. 70 resumes of the same graduating batch has written the same thing, or 70 kids from the same group that's applying for internship has it. Please modify. Number one, for example, let the recruiter knows that you have the skill to do primary research. मतलब आप in normal times धूप में, गर्मी में, door to door जा सकते हैं, और work from home के scenario में you had the ability and the connectivity to reach out to so many people to get that primary research going. So just the word primary research shows a personality skill. Just the fact the number 10 shows the level of your interaction. All right. But majority of the documents that I see is, did a retailer research on Sunsilk to find out the market conditions. All right. The same thing when written in a graduating document, a personal statement, etc. I have done various research projects. The word various is nothing. Just day before yesterday, I was correcting a personal statement for a scholarship application. The word various, many, different, was used across different tasks, and those were the words that were being used to describe the tasks, right? But these words mean nothing. All right. So just look at the difference. Cutting a tree and translating that, doing a retailer research, just by adding 2 things, primary and 10, it has changed the entire impact of how the recruiter is going to view you. If you, for example, you write secondary research, it shows your intellect. It shows your ability to absorb hundreds of documents and then compile the most relevant things and present it forward. So both the words primary and secondary indicates a skill, indicates an ability, and indicates a trait. All right. Here it is. Compiled a report for XYZ project. Think about the operational efficiency that this report brought. When you compiled a report, it facilitated the department to implement a cost-saving measure. It facilitated something else. Just the word facilitate shows that you are the backbone behind something happening, or the fact that your internship or your course project helped somebody to achieve something else. So just look at after the second part of this sentence, that if you were to evaluate somebody writing, I compiled a report versus facilitated something, it enables a recruiter to see your ability to do something. All right. And again, like I said, these are examples. So nobody can question and say, well, miss, it's very difficult to put. It's not difficult. Every single word that you write can be written in such a way that it can show the decision maker what you are capable of. Organize an event as a result of your ability to either network or to present your idea. That event was organized. All right. Now remember, things are going to change. You will not probably have on-campus mega events for the next couple of months, but nothing prevents you from organizing an event online. Nothing prevents you if, for example, you are part of the HR society or you're part of the marketing society. Think of creative ways how you can bring people under one roof. Think about projects that you can give participants. You can still have a conference that's online by giving, some kind of competitions. Some kind of case study competition, some kind of video competitions, creative skills, develop a product and we'll share it, and the best group gets a prize. The sky is the limit. All right, it's in our mind, and it's that hurdle that we have, that because we are not doing things the way we used to, koi projects nahi ho sakte, koi internships nahi ho sakte, koi events nahi ho sakte, right? Where you had an audience of say 200 have a virtual medium, your audience can be 2,000 people. You can still charge them, you can have a registration fee, you can do all of it. But it's the ability to make sure that I need to start preparing a skill set for my application documents. All right. This is very simple. You play cricket. All right. Because you play cricket, the skill that is there, that you are a team player and you have time manager. एक क्रिकेट खेलने वाले स्टूडेंट को पढ़ना भी होता है, एग्जाम्स भी देने होते हैं, प्रोजेक्ट्स भी करने होते हैं, and yet if he's done that and he does his daily training and goes for whatever matches and things like that, just think about how that is a unique skill versus somebody who doesn't have that. All right. So again, playing cricket is something which is a credential which has not happened in the last maybe 6 to 8 months, may not happen for another 3 months. But again, your team is playing in England, the matches are happening. People who play cricket may be playing to no audiences. All right. You take the initiative. Be the first person to pioneer a no audience cricketing match amongst 2 education institutions. Right. So beyond the line that campuses and physicality has made for you, step out of that line, go beyond that line, jump over it. Okay. All right. And so the bottom line is think beyond the physical and explore the outcome, which is exactly what I just said. All right. Now, what is the evolution checklist? I'm going to make it very simple. Again, like I said, I'm talking about very believable things. And again, believable because this is what I have been facing as a challenge for the last couple of months. All right. And it was only fair to share it with an audience who will benefit from it, or who will at some point turn around and say, can we have a chat about my documents as well? All right. So your 3 headings, like I said, making it basic, making it not generic, and making it not vague, that you should get in touch with people or you should connect to them on LinkedIn. Yes, that's there. But when you come from environments that seem restrictive, when you come from environments that seem challenging and unpredictable, sometimes the shoulds kind of don't make sense. So here it is. The fall semester will start for those students who are currently enrolled. I'm addressing them. Reports and presentations and projects will still be given. However, please remember that a project is not the heading that's on your course outline, right? A project, when it is translated on a resume, should look unique in 3 things. What the objective was, how you executed it, and what was the learning skill. And this can all be said in 10 words. All right. So if you had a project on comparing Sunsilk with, say, Pantene or something to that effect, then yes, the objective was a competitive analysis through primary research of retailers in order to understand market dominance. That's it. 3 words. One was an analysis. Second one, what was your execution? And third was you were checking market dominance. Now, imagine when a recruiter reads this, A, curiosity is tickled. B, if you are going to be sitting in an interview in any of those companies where you did the document, where you did the report on, that's it. That's your point of discussion. And an entire interview can go on that. But when you write, did a report on Sunsilk and Pantene to understand competition, I am not intrigued or curious or excited about that as a recruiter. So, and the same thing needs to be translated when you're writing a graduation document. For a graduation document, if you want to do an MS in marketing, I've read hundreds of personal statements in MS in marketing, and very few of them actually are able to highlight the objectives that have been achieved before, so that if they do this master's degree, it will facilitate them to implement or to, do better in the function that they are doing their master's in. So objective execution and learning skills should be part of every project. And this is even for people who, so that was one aspect I'm talking about from an academic aspects, projects from a non-academic aspects. For those of you in the workforce, again, when people say, led a sales team of XYZ people in order to introduce a new product into the segment, it's extremely vague, and especially coming from people in the professional environment. In the professional environment, it's all about using, I think in the last 4 days, I may have seen at least 11 resumes in which there were people who were making transitions. And 11 resumes didn't have numbers and percentages to give evidence of the value addition that they were bringing to the organization. All right. So even if you've done a project as part of an organization, as part of a team, remember the clarity in front of the recruiter is not Sherlock Holmes. Objectivity, execution, and learning skill has to be black and white. All right. And finally, resourcefulness and learning outcome. When you use numbers that you interacted with 14 retailers or you interviewed 11 brand managers, it tells your resource. It's not easy meeting people. It's not easy telling somebody, can you spare 10 minutes of your time? It's not easy saying that, can you do half an hour of chat? It's a very difficult thing. You require a certain kind of a personality to make somebody agree to, chat with you. And that is what should shine in your resume when you give the number that you've interacted with. All right. And learning outcome, as a result of that, when you talk about the learning skill, which is in the first point, that's exactly what it is, that you were able to understand, the competitive play in the market. All right. So these are some of the things. Again, internships and work experiences. This is catering to both audiences. I've written internships for those who are in their mid-academic situations and work experiences for those who are transitioning. Please remember this keyword. I love this word. It's when you are writing your internships, even if they're social internships, I know that semester 5th ke, 4th ke, 3rd ke students hain, 6th ke, they're always panicking कि miss for work experience में तो कुछ है नहीं क्योंकि सिर्फ TCF है और some, सिर्फ social internship है. But remember, if you keep this word operational efficiency as your Bible, automatically आपके अंदर से ऐसे अल्फाज निकलेंगे जिसको आप articulate कर सकेंगे कि अगर आपने TCF में भी social internship की थी तो आपकी operational efficiency में क्या contribution थी. So this is a very, very important word. When you are writing your internships and work experience, after you've typed them, sit back, read it, and ask yourself, have I been able to clarify that this is what I added to the operational efficiency? और operational efficiency में क्या क्या चीजें आती हैं? Increased customer engagement, time management, reaching out to more people, mentoring, and I'm talking social internship, mentorship resulting in successful applications to higher education colleges. These are all words that indicate, but when I see it, mentored students for the TCF XYZ program, right? There's no operational efficiency there. So what if you mentored? I don't even know कि आपके mentoring से बच्चे pass हुए या fail हुए, right? So that vagueness doesn't give me the confidence to put your document in the shortlisted category, all right? I've already mentioned the impact of numbers and percentages. They are a game changer. All right. जो चीज 3 सेंटेंस में जरूरत होती है पढ़ने के लिए, एक नंबर या एक परसेंटेज को रखने से वो 3 जुमलों की चीज जो है, you can actually read it in like 2 words. So when you say 30%, so one of the most favorite things that people do is manage social media for XYZ. All right. That's huge. But what was your percentage of traffic post your management? And by traffic, I mean the number of people who started logging onto your website, or the number of people who started ordering online as a result of your social media management, or the amount of feedback that you were getting as a result of you managing that social media page. If you had like 11% of the market, because of your social media management, did the market increase to 14, 15%? Because you now had an online presence. This is all about operational efficiency. If you can figure that out, you have mastered the art of writing an internship or a work experience. The same thing is for people in the jobs. So people in the jobs, it's a lot easier. But surprisingly, even that, I see a lot of people will just write the task they've done. Remember, we are talking about the evolution of the resume from task to skill. And because of the pandemic environment that you're going through, remember, task showcase करना बहुत मुश्किल हो रहा है, क्योंकि आप किसी के सामने नहीं हैं, आप सामने नहीं बैठे हुए हैं, आप किसी से बातचीत नहीं कर रहे हैं. जो आप चीजें कम्युनिकेट कर रहे हैं अपने डिसीजन मेकर्स को या अपने सुपीरियर्स को, वो सिर्फ एक सॉफ्ट कॉपी के जरिए या एक स्क्रीन के जरिए आप कम्युनिकेट कर रहे हैं. So it's very difficult to see how people are. Nobody is going to see, there used to be this thing, oh, agar aap office mein raat ke 10 baje tak baithenge, to you are considered as a very, very crucial worker. But nobody is seeing कि आप सुबह बिस्तर से 10 बजे उठ रहे हैं या 12 बजे उठ रहे हैं, लेकिन अगर आपकी 24th को डेडलाइन थी और वो डॉक्यूमेंट 24th से पहले आपने दे दिया है, that's it. So look at the shift. So the late sittings, and just the very fragile behavior, calling a lot of meetings, giving a lot of presentations. A lot of people don't want to connect online frequently. Also, there may be connectivity issues, there may be electricity issues. So remember, what is going out is actually your product, right? So that's why it's very, very important to make sure that in your resume you can translate that product into a percentage or a number, which is now possible. All right. So this is the shift that I'm talking about, that visually nobody can see what you're doing, but it's the outcome, what is becoming very obvious, right? And the key business indicators are also a reflection of the operational efficiency. So आपकी sales है, आपकी time है, आपकी expenses है, आपका turnover है, आपका revenue है, customer engagement है, market penetration है, competition hai. These are all words that indicate the health of a company, and you may have contributed to the health of the company. It can be as small as 1% because you were an intern, and it can be as big as 11% because you were a lateral position person. But it's very, and the reason why I'm talking about this, one of the impact of this, there should be a twofold impact of the session. The first impact should be that your current documents, you should go back to your laptops and start judging them yourself and saying, okay, now have I done all that was discussed in the session? The second thing is that jis waqt aap koi kaam, when you start doing that work, right, you will have that mindset, I have to calculate the percentage. I have to calculate the impact. You will not just be sitting on your laptop, or you should not be, rather, blindly doing stuff, sending it. And then when you have to put it down the resume, the most important question is, but miss, I'm not sure how many people were affected by this. Why were you not sure? You were the owner of that task. You have to know how many people were affected by this, or what did the organization benefit from that. So from today, for those of you who are listening, when you step down and doing a project which is, or a report which has been assigned in a simple course, like in an introductory course, like principles of management and principles of marketing, आप लोग को fall semester में reports मिलेंगी, जरूर मिलेंगी, ठीक है? जिस वक्त you start doing that report on principles of management or principles of marketing, don't just do it to do a submission. Do it thinking 6 months down the road, I have nothing on my plate because I am in semester 2, but I still have to make a resume for XYZ internship. How can I word this document, word this report in such a way that the recruiter can see some skill? So that is the starting point, that before you guys jump into doing an internship, a project, an assignment, etc., I think this is where this session should make a difference. that your end should be very clear. The problem that we do is, and it's something that I'm also do maybe, that we see the beginning only. But if you want strong documents for placement purposes, for graduate placement purposes, it's very, very important for you to have a clear vision of your end so that you can articulate that end in that particular document. All right. And the last thing, extracurriculars. Again, like I said, on-campus cheezein nahi hongi. Let's face it, that's going to reality. But nothing prevents you from being a pioneer. All right. If you're currently holding positions, if you're currently holding, and I know a lot of graduates who are, say, for example, they're gym fanatics. So 9 se 5 they are at works, and then they are bodybuilders, etc. Start your own, online 1 hour kind of a Zoom exercise session, right? And name it something jazzy, the stress release for the pandemic, or something to that, a diversion to the COVID, or something to that effect. Again, like I said, the sky is the limit. And at that point, when you are then writing that in your resume, you can actually articulate that in a really, really nice, interesting way right at the end, where your extracurriculars complement all that you've achieved professionally, right? And the other thing that you need to check is when you say manager XYZ society, that means nothing. But when you write manager XY society and you say led a team of 11 people in order to do this, remember every extracurricular has to show 3 things: skills, personality, and traits. All right? Articulated in such a way that a skill of managing people, a personality of leadership, and a trait of initiation should be very, very obvious from something that you do as an extracurricular. All right? Okay. And so to sum this slide up, we all know that everybody in organizations talks about this really, really stressful word: KPIs, 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 right? You're in a professional environment, your life is based on this. KPIs गिरेंगे, appraisal कम होंगी, KPIs अच्छी होंगी, appraisal अच्छी होंगी. Good. All right. This is the language of recruiters. Please use this language. And I don't mean by this, translate that into your skill set. So a KPI for an organization is basically achieving a sales target, right? You can actually translate that on your resume that because of XYZ skill, you did achieve a certain sales target, or a time efficient thing, or a production thing, or engaging with people in such a way that they achieve their goals. All right. So this is a kind of language that you have to keep thinking. Your organization ke andar, when you are working 9 to 5 and a recruiter picks up a resume, he doesn't step out of his role. He or she is still in that same role. So he's still looking for the same things, right? The clash is that here are people from academia and here are people from the corporate environment. People from academia are still looking at did, report, wrote, compiled, etc. But here people on the other side are looking for increase, decrease, revenue, performance, outcome, addition, etc. Please speak the same language. And that is how the evolution comes. That is how the translation comes. All right. So what are some of the limitations that you're going to be facing? And the reason why I've put this down right in front of you is because I don't want you to use these as excuses. Projects and research का सिर्फ एक physical limitation है कि आप किसी के दफ्तर जाके उनसे इंटरव्यू नहीं कर सकेंगे. बाकी सब कुछ आप कर सकते हैं. ठीक है? Internships और work experiences क्या है? If you're currently in an internship, you're never going to meet who you are working with or the rest of your peers other than through a screen. If you're currently working in a in a professional role, the interface with your line manager is not there physical across the table, but it may be physically across a laptop, right? So yes, that is a limitation, and that limitation will be a hurdle for a lot of things. Like I said, people can't see how swiftly you move, or people can't see how you are dressed, or people can't see your personality, right? Or people can't see how neatly organized your desk is. That also makes a lot of difference. So that is not there. But again, like I said, evolution is when man evolved, he changed a lot of behaviors. So when we are evolving in the work environment, a lot of behaviors have to change. And finally, extracurricular on-campus roles. I've already said that there is no challenge that can stop you from pursuing an extracurricular. If you like to bike, you can bike alone even without wearing a mask. You can still do it. If you like to bake, you can still have an online business. People will come and pick up stuff from your doorstep. In fact, people are eating more in the pandemic, all right, because they're home. All right, so there is nothing where you can say that. And remember, recruiters are going to demand this 6 months from now. What did you do in the 6 months? What did you do in lockdown? This will be a conversation starter. It's already been a conversation starter. What has been your, the other day there was an interview of XYZ company and the conversation starter was, what was your distraction in these stressful times? And the respondent had very confidently said Netflix, and it's perfectly okay. What on Netflix? And XYZ, right? So think about that diversity and think about those conversation starters, because this pandemic is going to affect communication in more than ways that we've ever thought of. And one of them is that everything will be twisted around what you did in the lockdown. All right. So these are the kind of things that will make the difference. So how do we overcome these limitations? Now I'm moving towards the closures and moving towards the actions and putting up some concrete examples. So what I shared with you was scenarios. What I shared with you were questions. What I shared with you was challenges. What I'm going to put forward for you is 2 slides. And hopefully after seeing those slides, you're not going to question and say, we can't, we should not, we have not, we will not. Okay, there will be no not, should not be any in your vocabulary. All right. So in the next 2 slides, I'm going to put a checklist. And it's almost like spoon feeding, by the way. And this checklist is both for people currently in the work environment and also people who are part of the academic environment. And this checklist is what is going to tell you your end. आज रिपोर्ट कर रहे हैं, इस रिपोर्ट कंप्लीट होने के 5 दिन बाद इस रिपोर्ट को या इस प्रोजेक्ट को मैं अपने रेज्यूमे में स्किल सेट की तरह किस तरह आर्टिकुलेट कर सकता हूं या कर सकती हूं, right? So this is what the checklist is going to help you to do. All right. So first you see the checklist. The second step is create a skill from what you do. How do you do that? And finally see example. It's all possible. And just for my audiences who are watching or who will be listening to this later on, the reason why I put how, because यही सवाल आते हैं. If I tell people, but miss how, so मैंने आपके ही सवाल पूछे और आपके ही सवालों का मैं जवाब दे रही हूँ, so that mental barrier is not there. Okay. So this is it, and I call this a yellow brick road. If you look at the column with the green words in it, these are all possible skills that should be showcased. If you're applying for a master's program in data analytics, if you're applying for a master's program in something in the financial function, if you're applying for a master's program in something in the HR and psychology function, if you're applying for a master's program in something in, digital marketing function, remember analytical skills, those zaruri, like this is like basic, this is like ABC. But miss, हमने तो कभी कुछ analysis किया ही नहीं. There it is. I've given an example. When you do a term paper for an IBA course, whether you graduated in 2019 or whether you're going to graduate it in 2021, there is analysis in that paper. Please write that down in a way that shows that analytical skills, right? So the green words on this slide are things that you should now not have gaps in. Kyunki there are this is twofold. Number one, your resume mein showcase honi chahiye through something that you do. And number 3, these are possible questions in an interview. There is a question on a problem that you might have. Did you plan something and execute it? What do people say about you as a team player? All right. Did you develop something that's independence and confidence? If we were to move you from here to Sakhar, would you be able to adjust? All right. Commercial awareness. Recently, we've launched XYZ. How do you think the impact of this or the usage of this is going to be during the pandemic or during people getting laid off? So the words in green not only are what you should be seeing when you start a task, a project, an internship, both from a work perspective today, but also these are things that will prepare you once your resumes and once your application documents get shortlisted. For a lot of graduate schools, by the way, a lot of them are now doing online interviews, especially at master's level. They want to see the candidates. Graduate schools levels pe kam hota hai because the numbers are a lot more, but masters mein aapke numbers bahut kam hote hain, aur scholarship programs mein to aur bhi kam hote hain. So predominant, and the more, the lesser the audience is, the more they want to see that who is going to be the constituent lot of our campus environment, ya hamare campus mein kis tarah ke log aayenge. So the words that you see in yellow, all right, these are the words that I've added in. Why? To counter your hurdles. How do we do this? Miss, I can't do this. हमने तो कभी कुछ प्लान नहीं किया. आप सब ने अगर IBM में 4 साल गुजारे हैं, IBM ने आपको ये सारी opportunities दी हैं, irrespective of whether you were the manager of a society. To work on a project for a FM report or for a HRM report, you have to work in a team. But it is not the project which is which is to be highlighted, but it is the methodology of where you achieve the outcome of that project which is to be highlighted. All right. So please look at this. Confidence. It takes a lot of guts to drop in a inbox message to tell somebody, I want to chat with you and ask you how things are doing. It takes a lot of guts. But if you've been able to establish that contact and done something as a result of that, that's what showcases in your resume. That how did you get that project? In an interview, somebody will ask you, oh, ye to lockdown tha, to aapne ye project kaise kar liya? And then you say, I connected with people through XYZ medium. All right. Commercial awareness. Very, very important point. The example for commercial awareness is basically the SWOT, right? You have to study the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats today in a completely different light. All right. So for the mega companies like Unilever and P&G and Engro and HPL and all of that, SWOT today and SWOT in January were black and white. All right. So you have to make sure that you are able to do that. All right. So please remember everything in green: analytical, problem solving, planning, teamwork, independent thinking, adaptability, commercial awareness. When you are doing a marketing project for an XYZ teacher or for an XYZ line manager, think about how commercially aware you became. And that skill is what is translated on your application essay and on your resume. All right. But the name of the company, the name of the product, and the task is not relevant to a skill set. It is only relevant when at the end of mentioning those three things, you will also mention the skill set. All right. So the impact is not there at all. All right. This is the second slide of the yellow brick road. The last things: leadership, ambition, persuasive negotiation. Now, again, leadership is something that has to showcase. Now, leadership basically means innovative traits, how you motivate others, how you direct them. Lekin miss wo lockdown tha, to hum kuch kar nahi sake. That's not true. Take an initiative in a lockdown, a connection that you establish through a virtual discussion. All right. So think about all these things. That leadership campus पे रह के या office के premises पे रह के इस वक्त नहीं हो सकती है. But leadership in an environment where you led your team through decreasing sales, or you led your team through a product launch which was supposed to be completely a mega event, but because of this had to be toned down. That is what leadership is at this point. So when we look at leadership, we are constantly translating it into this image that we stand on the top and our subordinates are down here. No, leadership can be while you're in the middle of your subordinates. You're sitting in your room and your house, etc. But like I said, the reason why I've given examples is so that there is no retaliation. Oh, miss, ये तो कहना बहुत आसान है, लेकिन इस जमाने में ये हो नहीं सकता है. Okay? So the examples give that believability. And it's very important to convince your listeners with those examples. Otherwise, they just sound like generic statements. All right? Okay, communication and writing, there's no excuse for this. All written documents uploaded have to be picture perfect, right? Ambition, very, very important. Keep an eye out for the changes in the market. I've already mentioned this. What are some of the skills that people are really going to appreciate now? All right. How is business developing? What are the different career opportunities? This is extremely important for you to be able to link what you're offering to what the organization wants. If working from home and digital connectivity is going to be the thing, then remember your resume has to be very heavy in that skill. All right. If the sector that you're applying for, customer interaction and feedback, is very important, remember that is what your resume should be showcasing. But miss, hame to abhi is waqt nahi pata, so we don't have that. That is why I'm putting this now. कि अगर आप second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh semester में है, start thinking about this. ताकि जब fall semester में आपको projects मिलेंगे, you can actually articulate using these. Secondly, if you're currently professionally working in a work environment, but I've just started 6 months ago, I've started 2 months ago. Companies are going to now start bombarding you within 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. So when you're doing that task or doing that project, make sure that the clarity in your ambition is very there, because 6 महीने या 1 साल के बाद जब आपका confirmation HR के साथ interview हो रहा होगा, या आपका performance appraisal interview हो रहा होगा, या जब आपका rotation खत्म होके interview हो रहा होगा, the HR is going to ask you, where do you see yourself? What department did you enjoy working most in? All right. Do you have any suggestions where we can place you? How about if you give you two choices? But if you say, well, I don't know, I kind of enjoyed all departments, that's a horrible answer. And which is what I know people give, because they've messaged me and said, Miss, we made a real faux pas, because the HR immediately said, well, that's no answer, because up to wo, they're part of the company, right? So they can give that feedback. So this is the clarity that you get when, before starting a task, you think, if I'm asked a question, or if I have to put this down somewhere, or if I quizzed about this, how will I articulate this? All right. So that should be the change in behavior that should come as a result of listening. After you listen to every session, there should be a change in behavior, or the change in the way you do something, right? Change your methodology. I'm hoping that this will help with that. Okay. This is it. Persuasion and negotiation. Of course, in an interview, in a resume, in a personal statement, your last paragraph, guys, in a personal statement, where you link the local environment to your education and to what you can offer, shows your desperation, that how early and initial stage the digital market is in Pakistan, what the scope is, what the opportunities. You're drooling. You're almost looking like you are absolutely excited about that. And just that 2 years of master's degree will seal your ability to be able to work on this digital opportunity that Pakistan is an untouched haven for digital opportunities. So think about that last two lines that you will write, the closing that your admissions officer will read, and he'll be like, oh my God, that's true. Pakistan, his desire, and how we can help. So that is how you persuade and you negotiate, right? Same thing, if your resume is accompanied by an email, right? The 3-4 lines, the last line that you write, it has to show your ability to persuade the reader. Please open my resume and have a look at it, okay? And finally, the other hard skills. So just to quickly recap, guys, focus on the green words. Before doing any projects, think about, am I analyzing, problem solving? Am I being creating? Am I doing planning? Am I getting an opportunity to work in a team? When you move on, what leadership? और हर project में से हर चीजें नहीं होंगी. So अगर आपके पास, I'm addressing students now, अगर आपके पास 6 reports हैं 6 subjects की, किसी में आप lead करेंगे, किसी में आप team play करेंगे, कहीं आप analysis करेंगे, right? कहीं आपको commercial awareness की opportunity मिलेगी. Same thing, people who are in the workforce, there may not be projects where you will lead, but you will definitely be a very integral team player. There will be situations where the idea will be yours, but you may not be executing it, right? So think about 4 different opportunities, 4 different skills. और एक resume में अगर 4 skills भी या 3 skills भी strongly showcase हो जाए, you are a guaranteed shortlist candidate. And then the next stage is interviews, which is another story. All right. Now, again, as we come towards the closing of the session, I'm going to, again, this is Gary Burnison. He is the CEO of a very, very big headhunting firm. And if you look at the next couple of slides, all that I said may sound intimidating, complicated, or academic language, but he's put it down very, very simply. The one thing he said, that it's time to dust off the old resume. You can actually follow him on LinkedIn. He has very, very interesting things to talk about graduates and, of course, the recruitment market, because he's a CEO of a headhunting firm. So he says the best things that he's ever seen in a resume. All right. So these are the 3 things he says. First 3, easy to read. Please focus on the words in red, which means that a recruiter finds it relaxing, calming, not intimidating to engage with the resume. It's not intimidating, it's not splitting his vision, and it's not giving him a headache. All right. The second thing is that resume tells a story of progression, and that brings me to what I said, कि अगर 2013 की आप कोई चीज कर रहे हैं, तो you should still be pursuing it. लेकिन 2013 में I did this, और उसके बाद उस resume में कोई उस चीज का नाम और निशान नहीं है. There is no story. Please remember, the resume and personal statements have to be very, very strong stories. So you guys have to become storytellers, basically. All right. And in his words, so the things in quotes are actually what his words are. That I like to see a resume where I can track a journey. The third thing is, you have to make sure that when you're writing something, and I put your resume aside, your duty has become memorable. Your task has become memorable for me. And in his words, it said that this particular candidate did something that would never happen without him. So this candidate was responsible for the primary research, which was at the lowest rung of the organizational ladder. But as a result of that primary research, the CEO took a decision to do X, Y, and Z. All right. Or from a project point of view, from a student, and like I said, I'm keeping both my audiences simultaneously from a student point of view, right? If you did a certain project, but because of your number crunching or because of your analysis, that report got a conclusion. And this is very, very well put, that your resume should be easy to engage. It should have a journey that's easy to track. And the reader should see your accomplishment in such a way that wo kaam hota hi nahi agar aap nahi karte. I don't think that's very difficult to do. And that's put very, very simply, all right? The next three things. Of course, there is something that I read on the resume and I'm like, I'm kind of doubting this, okay? I'll go onto the LinkedIn profile and it's there and somebody's commented on it. Or you have similar people from that particular activity or etc. And that gives me a reason to believe yes. Because sometimes, yes, sometimes whether if people are too junior or they're too early in their academic lives and yet they've achieved something, a recruiter finds believability an issue. And the only way to verify is to go onto the LinkedIn profile, and there are others who have connected, complimented, or encouraged or supported you in the endeavor that's mentioned in your resume. By the way, the same thing happens even in college applications. A doubt is always checked by your social media page because very rarely can you lie on social media because there are too many cops out there who can catch you. Resume तो एक की आंखों के सामने जाता है तो अगर आप कोई झूठ बोल दे तो I guess that fear is not there. But social media में the fear is slightly higher because somebody who's worked in that project can actually comment and say, hey, I never saw you, where were you, right? So that might happen. I love this word. A recruiter has to picture the candidate in action, and I've already said that. Resume se aap uchhal ke aane chahiye, personal statements say you should be an animated object. People should be able to feel you know, realize you and understand you. These are the three very important words that somebody who's proofreading your evaluating any of your documents should be able to feel you. They should be able to understand you, and they should be able to visualize you. All right. And of course, the last thing, coming via recommendation always helps. Not all of us can do this, but this is something I remember that a recruiter had even said in one of my sessions, that a lot of times, jab a candidate third or fourth stage tak pahunch jata hai, और अगर वो IBA का, लम्स का, ज़ैबिस का, XYZ का कैंडिडेट है और रिक्रूटर की टीम में उस एनवायरनमेंट से या उस कंपनी से या उस कॉलेज से कोई और कैंडिडेट है, so in a very passing comment, the HR person will say, you know what, I got a resume of XYZ person. Did you ever know him? Now that means for him to say something nice about you, you should have already connected with him before you apply to that company. And that is our recommendation. That person will not help you get the job. Remember that. All right. But that person will help to put in a good word about you, which means that if both the resumes were on the same table flat, the person who has a connection, that might come a little higher. So here, by no way I'm talking about nepotism or isse sifarish karwa. I'm not saying that. But all I'm saying is that this is what happens at lunch, walking in the corridor, out of 11 candidates you've shortlisted, one person is standing out. It's from IBA. You are the recruiter is kind of in a dilemma. He will shoot it out to somebody from a similar background. Hey, did you study with this person? Or do you know this person? You know that person's applied. Now, that point, the response should be, no, I do not know him. The recruiter's mind will be blank. He will have to go back and go through your resume and say, acha chalo, now let me see what's so good about him. But the minute that guy says, yes, I worked with him in this, oh, he's a great team player, oh, you know what, he just connected with me a couple of days ago through the alumni network and just wanted to know about the culture of this organization. Can you imagine the impression on the recruiter? The recruiter is going to be like, wow, usne itni effort ki hai ki ek unknown ko. And again, kya skill display ho raha hai? Confidence. It takes a lot of guts and confidence to randomly start calling up and harassing people. And I totally agree that. And some people do it very, very well. All right. Okay. Now, a final word. When you're searching and looking for things in the pandemic and you're offering yourself, please be flexible. What you get may not be your dream gig, but it can be a stepping stone for what you do next. And remember, if you start working in a startup or you start something which is much smaller, far away from you, whatever you ever imagined, remember, next year, you will go into the work experience category. And when you're in the work experience category, you are a notch above the fresh graduates. All right, this is a very, very crucial finding that I have been told by somebody who's in the recruitment process, that yes, we understand that students are struggling, and there are a lot of times rejecting small time startups and stuff, although startups are hiring in a very crazy manner because a lot of them are the digital startups. But they said that once you have done 6 to 8 months and that comes in your resume, you are not considered a fresh graduate anymore. Right? So for those of you who are in the brink of deciding whether this is not big enough, this is not cool enough, just think about your status 6 to 8 months down the road. And when things improve, there may be a change, there may be an increase in demand. You will not be competing with people who will be graduating a year later than you. You will be a step up. All right? Be flexible, network. I've said enough about this. Build your professional portfolio, profile online, describe your skills and craft. Again, please make sure that this is also not something that you describe tasks. And finally, guys, I just had to put this in here because we weren't getting an opportunity for doing virtual interviews. But please notice on the second line, what is going to be missing in your body language in a virtual interview is body language and building a natural rapport. It's going to be missing terribly, right? Because you're not there. And this is also pertaining to when you're meetings, etc. The one thing that you need to focus on insanely is your eye contact. And this is a feedback that I've gotten from recruiters over the last couple of, because I was talking to a lot of them, asking them, what are the best strategies to prepare people for virtual interviews? They said the first thing is that we see that people's eye contact is not, so you have to pretend like the laptop is the person that you're talking to. It's as simple as that. Okay. So I just had to put in this line again because it is a industry feedback. All right. And also have as many coals in the fire as you can, because remember, each time you go for an interview, it's an addition to a skill, number one, and it's an opportunity to connect. All right. So even if your heart is not in that, put yourself together, because it's an opportunity to get out of the lazy mode, put down a button-down shirt or wear a nice kurta or a top and sit in front of somebody and have a conversation. And you never know what that conversation may strike, right? And be persistent. The job picture will improve. Why? Because there will be new needs, there'll be new markets, and there'll be new products. So this is a very positivity line, right? There has to be. I mean, who thought that the market for masks would increase like this, right? So there are new needs always, right? Okay, now I'm just going to summarize, just so if there are any audiences specifically for the graduate application processes, this is how you do it, okay? This is your college essay. Convert the task into a skill. So a task is marketing report, internship. So a skill is basically, again, the same thing, that as a result of that, market penetration, improvement, engagement, customer retention. So you convert the task into a skill relating to interest. Now remember, academic applications में interest दिखाना बहुत जरूरी होता है, because जो आपका admissions officer होता है वो हमेशा आप ये evaluate कर रहा होता है कि इस student क्या interest क्या data analytics में है, इस student का interest क्या public organization या social sector में है, इस student का interest, अगर आपका इंटरेस्ट होगा तभी वो आपको अपॉर्चुनिटी देंगे एक क्लासरूम में बैठने के लिए जहां आप सिमिलर इंटरेस्ट वाले लोगों के साथ पढ़ सकते हैं. So the one difference between basically the body of people who are in a professional environment and in a graduate environment, remember that in a college and an academic environment there are people with similar interests, and that's very important because एक ही टीचर एड्रेस कर रही होती है. But जब आप एक प्रोफेशनल एनवायरनमेंट में होते हैं, there are people with different interests, marketing, supply chain, HR, etc. And you need that diversity of skill, because अगर कोई ये प्रोडक्ट डेवलपमेंट भी कर रहा होता है, उसको कॉस्टिंग आनी चाहिए, उसको फाइनेंस आनी चाहिए, उसको ये पता होना चाहिए कि एचआर में क्या क्या स्किल्स चाहिए इस प्रोडक्ट को डेवलपमेंट करने के लिए. सो डाइवर्सिटी ऑफ स्किल्स इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट इन अ प्रोफेशनल एनवायरनमेंट. बट इन एन एकेडमिक एनवायरनमेंट, अनलेस यू कांट शोकेस योर इंटरेस्ट, you will not be put in the class for psychology, or you will not be put into a program for sociology. Right? So this is the one difference, that you have to convert the task into a skill, and that skill has to relate to an interest. So for example, if you spend 5 years of your life mentoring students at TCF and other NGOs, it means that you want to do a master's in public administration, something that will cater to the social sector in Pakistan. All right? So this is how you translate. All right? So the interest has to be articulated into a professional goal. This is the 5 to 6 points, or this is actually a paragraph layout of your graduate document. The first you talk about tasks, then you talk about the skills related to an interest, then you articulate that, and at the end, remember the end, the persuasive pitch, that's your professional goal. That Pakistan is an environment which requires tremendous, health policies or educational policies, or population nurturing policies. I don't know what the buzzwords for the social sector. And because of these, this program will empower me to come and do this from a very professional or a very formal level, is something to that effect. So remember, your end in a graduating or in a college application has to be that match between, because please remember that it's a very wrong concept that आप ये समझें कि आप बाहर पढ़ने जा रहे हैं और आप किसी ना किसी तरह यहाँ से भाग जाए, right? You have to make sure that you align your future to what this country is giving you an opportunity for, because you will be given admission because of being a Pakistani student and the diversity that you bring in being that Pakistani student. All right. And how going back to an environment like Pakistan, this degree is going to help you. So as a Pakistani student, you may get an opportunity to do the degree because Pakistan needs such people. But if, for example, there is somebody who's from Taiwan, or there's somebody from Hong Kong or Japan, जहाँ पे social system बिल्कुल Japan में perfect है, a Japanese may not get that opportunity because Japan doesn't need a social system the way Pakistan. That's what I'm saying. इस तरह competition और इस तरह decisions बनते हैं. तो unless आप अपने environment और goal को highlight नहीं करेंगे, जो आपका जो admissions officer है, he cannot understand why you should be given the opportunity versus somebody else. All right. And finally, this is what I've said, that enhanced by your academic purpose. So this is what a graduate application should look like. The one takeaway from this particular session is these are the questions that you should be asking yourself. What is the skill that you're developing? This is repetition and a recap of all that I've said, right? What is the skill that you're developing from doing a project, from doing an assignment, from doing an activity, even if it's as simple as getting up every morning and going for biking? What is the skill that you're developing? Physical fitness, time management, focus on health are all skills that you're developing. All right. How can you showcase that skill on the resume? And finally, what is the impact of that particular task? These are the three things that you are going to ask yourself before you hold your nose and jump in the deep end of doing the task कि बस ये करके किसी तरह खत्म हो जाए. No, it's not the किसी तरह करके खत्म हो जाए, but it's about skill, showcasing, and impact. So in all the conversations that I've had, in all the formats and all the discussions, this is the one takeaway, so that it kind of clarifies the thing. All right. And when you are answering these questions for yourself first and then for the recruiter, that is the evolution of your resume. It's already started. Because why? हम अपना resume के बारे में कब सोचना शुरू करते हैं? जब हम laptop के ऊपर बैठते हैं and say, today I will make my resume. The evolution process is this is what I was trying to impart, that the process of starting your resume should begin when you start doing any task in your academic or your professional life. And that is when you start. You still have not gone to a laptop. You have no paper in front of you, nothing. Resume के बारे में आपने सोचा भी नहीं है. लेकिन आप अपनी टास्क, प्रोजेक्ट्स, रिपोर्ट्स, असाइनमेंट्स शुरू करने वाले हैं. And when you start doing that, this is how you start doing that. And then when you have this mind frame, then making a resume will just be, it'll just be like child's play. Okay. So these are some of the skills, suggested skills that, promotion, confidence, negotiations, collaborations. By the way, जरूरी नहीं है कि ये हो, लेकिन this is just an idea. कि जब मैं कोई project, कोई assignment या कुछ कर रही हूँ या कर रहा हूँ, इसमें से what are some of the things that, so the reason why I have listed these is so it gives you an idea, and also like I said ना, हमेशा सवाल हो जाता है, मिस लेकिन हम कैसे कर सकते हैं? तो वो जो कैसे कर सकते हैं का, so I'm already answering your questions hopefully before you're asking them, right? And finally, opportunities don't happen, you got to create them. And I'm a firm believer of this. I myself have got a million opportunities, things that I didn't even dream of doing in the last couple of months, right? And it's not because they landed in my lap, but because it's about offering and searching and finding what can you do. And all of you, I've always maintained that every single person who exists in this universe has a certain skill set. Some people are aware of it, some people are not aware of it. To address those who are not aware of it, this is this time to start. All right. Okay, so if there are any questions, if there are any comments, if there are any feedback, Danish, would you like to?
All right. It was such a wonderful session, so much insights present in your presentation. I think there were few questions from the student side. I think we should take them one by one.
Sure, sure.
Zain Aziz has asked, should the resumes have hyperlinks of some spreadsheets or blogs or websites or the work relevant to the point we have mentioned in our resumes? Uh,
Absolutely.
so, hmm.
Okay, so should I answer the question?
Yeah, please do that.
Okay, so the thing is that dekho, we are always struggling and we always ask these questions because the thing that is riding on our mind is ke, oh my god, clutter, bahut sari cheezein. Um, by a certain stage of your academic life for a fresh graduate resume, you should have that insight of what to delete and of what to add. Sometimes a link to a website or a blog is more important than writing a typical academic report that 45 of your peers may have in their resume. So the content has to be evaluated on the basis of what showcases your skills. So this is a very vague question. Should there be a blog or a website? I would frame it that if there is that blog or that website is giving you that unique edge of skill set that you want the recruiters to see, of course it has to be there. But to put that, there's a possibility that you have to knock something else out because the one thing is given कि एक fresh graduate का resume एक पेज से ज़्यादा नहीं होना चाहिए चाहे आपने जितने भी तीर मारे हुए हैं, but that's the bottom line. I have in the last X number of years 100 recruiters have engaged and they've said हम ऊपर वाला पेज ना scroll down करेंगे अगला पेज और ना नीचे वाला पेज उठा के पढ़ेंगे. So yes, please put on because this gives credibility. Out of 100 students graduating, there might be 5 of them who have blogs and websites, so you may stand out in terms of uniqueness, but balance the content in your resume, right?
Right. And I intentionally put up this question when you were discussing about the LinkedIn URL and how you should be maintaining your LinkedIn
Yeah,
profile. I think
yeah,
your LinkedIn profile should be your website. It should
yeah,
present the recruiter all of your projects, all of the stuff that you have done. And that hyperlink can be verified by the recruiter when and where
yeah,
required. And that could be it. But of course, if you have done some apart from LinkedIn, you can also add blogs, you can also add
yeah.
websites that you have created. That's always advisable. Zan has another question, that how can we incorporate our startups in the resumes? Because recruiters have this bias that someone, if they have their own startup, they might be focusing on their own startup rather than the current job at hand. So how to present that in the resume, and
Okay.
should it be
Um,
mentioned or not? That's another
yes, so
part.
let me tell you that there are bankers who will finish work at 7 p.m. and then they will go and be yoga instructors. But that doesn't mean that they want to make a career out of being a yoga instructor. There are CEOs who are at work till, X number of days, and they will take 4 days off because they're part of a band and they are traveling the country to play their music. All right. But अगर वही CEO कहीं दूसरी का जगह नौकरी के लिए अप्लाई कर रहा है और वो नीचे लिख रहा है that he is part of a band, the recruiter of that company doesn't think that he wants to make a career in being a rock star. If you showcase your startup as a passion, if you showcase your startup as something that you were looking for an opportunity to experience the functions. देखिए articulation में हमेशा, maybe because I'm a communication person, I believe के words ऐसी चीज हैं जो एक काली चीज को भी you can make it look like white just by making certain, you can actually bring that believability. So this is a question that I get a lot from students, and there is a fear of talking about startups, right? But remember, there are so many people who I know who are very, very senior professionals and they are doing a clothes business because it's a passion. They like to be creative. They have an art studio. They'll इतने artists के अगर आप profiles देखें, कहीं वो पढ़ा रहे हैं, कहीं वो कुछ कर रहे हैं. So if you are insecure about your startup, it's about what confidence you show the recruiter and how you frame it to say that this is something that fueled a passion for, say, for example, designing jewelry. But that doesn't mean that आप एक jewelry की दुकान खोल के बैठने वाले हैं. right? So you
Hmm.
can be a brand manager, you can be a marketer, you can be a finance person, you can be an HR head. But on Saturdays and Sundays, you can go back from your kitchen and bake for people who love eating because you're a good cook. So please put your startups, but confidence. घबरा के नहीं, शर्मा के नहीं, guilty हो के नहीं. Put it up to showcase skills, and you may have an edge in the skill set because of a startup, which another candidate may not, because he's stepping out of the college classroom into the organization,
Hmm.
right?
Right. I
So
think that answer your questions then. Amar has a question, but I think you have already discussed this as part of your slide, one of your slides. What should be the difference in a resume for an academic purpose compared to the one for the recruitment purpose?
okay, so
So,
I'll quickly highlight this again. When you write a resume for an academic purpose, think about the fact that, again, I've said that आपकी जो academic interests हैं वो बहुत ज़्यादा obvious होनी चाहिए. So अगर आप apply कर रहे हैं, say for example MS in sociology, I don't know, right? You have to be showcasing things, projects that you've done in sociology, internships that you may have done in. So which relates to that same concept that I said, that a resume for a professional corporate environment looks for that diversity. That's why they play a lot of emphasis on extracurriculars also. I know recruiters have actually said to me कि हम बिल्कुल scroll down करते हैं, हम extracurriculars देखते हैं और हमें वो अच्छी लगती है, तो we have the belief that he's going to be a fun, these are the words, fun person to be on the team, right? लेकिन academic resume में you're still going to a school और वो school mentality है, right? And a school mentality means कि अगर आपने sociology पढ़ी है, sociology में काम किया है और sociology में interest है, तभी हम आपको इस classroom में आने देंगे, क्योंकि आपसे बहुत अच्छे candidates हैं जो sociology में they are living, dying, breathing sociology. So an
hmm,
academic resume is very focused on your interest, and that's common sense.
right. Amar has another question, that how to integrate freelance projects into your resume if you haven't been credited for it. Usually, Pakistanis are hired for projects and paid for it but aren't credited. Should freelancers not add these projects in their resumes?
देखिए, you have to understand that resume का next step interviews होता है. So if you can justify with absolute credibility, believability, statistics about those freelance things in an interview, by all means go ahead and do it. जिस चीज को आप वेरीफाई नहीं कर सकते, जिस चीज के आप मार्केट आइडेंटिफाई नहीं कर सकते, जिस चीज के आप ऑर्गेनाइजेशन आइडेंटिफाई नहीं कर सकते, ऑडियंस, वो चीज आप बिल्कुल नहीं लिखेंगे. लेकिन अगर आपने कोई फ्रीलांस प्रोजेक्ट किया है फॉर सम कंपनी टू डेवलप अ वेबसाइट एंड इट्स नॉट accredited, but if you tell the recruiter likes it, wow, he's a website developer, we want people like that. He'll call you and in the first question ask you, what website did you develop and for whom? If you can answer that question, you're not lying. So again, it depends on the facts that you have to support what is in your. Don't forget guys, resume अगर अच्छा होगा, अगर इन बातों के बाद और effort के बाद अगर resume अच्छा होगा, तो you're not hired, you still have to go for an interview, right? And that's where you have to defend everything that you have kind of claimed in the resume.
Right. And a lot of feedback regarding the session as well. Amazing evaluation, truly learning session. Thank you, Anita, for the feedback. Uh, okay, Amar, this is great initiative. Thank you, Amar, for the appreciation. This actually, motivate us to do more. So keep, appreciating this effort. Keep asking questions. Keep taking benefit of this platform. I don't think we have further questions, so perhaps we can conclude our today's session.
Excellent. So if anybody has questions that they've thought of afterwards,
Hmm.
I'm at IBA, so they can always get in touch with me individually if they want.
All right, guys. Thank you so
Thank you,
much
Danish, for this opportunity,
once again.
and best of luck for the rest of your sessions.
All right. Thank you, Nadia,
Take
and
care. Thank
thank you,
you.
everyone. Stay safe, stay well, and keep logging on to our CDC group and pages for more updates and session. Thank you. Take care. Love us.